Additional Secretary of the Americas Division in the Ministry of External Affairs. Sir, may I request you to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Arindam. Ambassador Sandhu, Additional Secretary Vani Rao, friends from the media, thank you very much for coming out at this late hours in reasonably good numbers for us to together go through important segments of Day 2 of Honorable Prime Minister's ongoing visit to the US. Prime Minister arrived in Washington yesterday after concluding his program in New York, which basically comprised of celebrations of International Day of Yoga at the UN, a couple of meetings in New York the day before, and a set of engagements yesterday in Washington. Yesterday in Washington, Honorable Prime Minister basically had two main engagements. One was an event with the First Lady on skilling for future, event which was organized at one of the community colleges near Washington, Montgomery Community College. And thereafter in the evening yesterday, Honorable Prime Minister, the President and the First Lady had a private engagement at the White House. Day 2 began early this morning with a grand welcome, ceremonial welcome at the White House, which all of you, I'm sure, witnessed. The ceremonial welcome in the morning, the proceedings throughout rest of the day, and the last event which just concluded. One thread which ran through all the events today and also yesterday was exceptional warmth and hospitality that the President of the US, the First Lady, extended to the Honorable Prime Minister. It was very clearly visible. You all saw in the morning at the ceremonial welcome yourself the clear manifestation of it, large presence of the Indian American community at the ceremonial welcome, the cordiality, the exceptional warmth between the President and the Prime Minister. All through that was very, very clearly visible. Besides the programming element of today, which I've already mentioned to you, which is the ceremonial welcome to start with, congressional address and the bilateral talks thereafter between the Prime Minister and the President, congressional address thereafter, and the dinner just a while ago it concluded. Besides those programming element, I would like to just run through very briefly with the substantive outcomes that this visit, this exceptional visit, has been able to achieve. You may have had a chance to look at the joint statement that was put out earlier during the day, but I would just summarize some of the key elements listed in the joint statement across various domains. First domain, I would say, would be of technology. Now, even before I go to what's in the joint statement, it is important to flag that when the Honorable Prime Minister and the President held their discussions in the White House after the ceremonial welcome, technology featured very prominently in the discussions. And not technology just in a single subdomain or a limited segmentation of it, but technology. but technology cooperation across most of the ecosystem that pertains to it, which would include technology transfer, which would include technology trade in technology products, technology services, which would also include working together to create research, co-produce and work on developing technologies across different sectors, which would also include the technology capacity building cooperation between the two countries. Now, if you look at specific subdomains which are listed in the joint statement, you will find that there are roughly 20 to 25 areas of technology partnership that have been identified in the joint statement as a direct result of the discussion between the two leaders earlier in the White House. So you have a full set of technology partnership areas in the field of semiconductors, whether it is the decision of Micron to set up an assembly line and test facility in India with a total investment amounting to roughly $2.75 billion. Of course, it would have a large chunk from Micron, but there will be other investors too. LAM, the company LAM's decision to train 60,000 Indian engineers, which falls more in technology capacity building engagement. The decision of the advanced applied materials to invest $400 million to establish a collaborative engineering center, again heavily centered on technology. If you go to the entire domain of initiative on critical and emerging technologies, you would find that there was a decision today to set up a quantum coordination mechanism and also the quantum information and science and technology agreement. Also partnership in several plurilateral engagements which focus on technology areas, quantum entanglement exchange, quantum economic development consortium, a research partnership program under the US-India Science and Technology Endowment Fund, which focuses more on joint development and commercialization of AI and quantum technologies. Critical area of HPC, high-powered computing technology, and development of source codes, and the regulatory easing in that space. So the 5 subdomains of technology I mentioned, you can easily add 2 more to that. One is relating to the regulatory easing. Google's AI Research Center also announced to continue its investing through the $10 billion digitalization fund. In S&T, there were 3 or 4 critical technology related announcements which were made, which are reflected in the joint statement. One of which was implementation arrangement between the NSF and the Department of Science and Technology of India relating to cyber physical systems and secure and trustworthy cyberspace. This area is particularly important given the increasing and increasingly complex and increasing number of cyber-related threats that our critical infrastructure in particular faces in both the countries. Signing of an implementation arrangement between NSF and the Ministry of Electronics of India for funding of joint projects in applied areas of research, which would include semiconductors, next generation communication, cyber security, green technologies, intelligent transport system, etc. Technology space then also continues into defense, where one of the landmark announcements done earlier this morning by GE was the signing of an MOU with HAL for production of GE 414 aero engine for the India's light combat aircraft. There was also an announcement on India-US Defense Industrial Cooperation Roadmap, which also has a heavy segment of technology. There are then technology-related announcements in the field of energy. There are good 6-7 of them. So if you put them all together, you will find that very clearly technology, in particular advanced technology, across various domains, whether it is the defense domain, whether it is in the area of space or other domains, it has been one of the most important outcomes, substantive outcomes from the visit and from the discussions between the leaders. Besides the technology-related segment, another area of important outcome has been people-to-people ties. This finds manifestation in a decision by the US side, and both India and US have agreed that US will start the process to open 2 new consulates in India, one in Ahmedabad, one in Bengaluru. India will open its consulate in Seattle and 2 other places which are to be determined later. Defense has been another important area of significant outcomes during this visit. One element of it which I've highlighted is the agreement to produce GE 414 engine. The other elements include India's plan to procure MQ-9B Reaper drones from the US. There have also been some decisions and announcements with regard to placement of defense personnel in each other's facilities to better understand different systems and their operations. We have also announced commencement of negotiations with the US Department of Defense for concluding a security of supply arrangement, as also discussions on the reciprocal defense procurement agreement. Energy, as I mentioned earlier on, is another area where we have seen significant and considerable number of outcomes, and these are all available for you to see in the joint statement. Trade has also been another focus area of priority discussions between the 2 countries, and that also featured in today's discussion. Now, one of the key elements in this has been that out of the 7 WTO disputes between India and the US, there has been a resolution for 6 of the outstanding WTO disputes. There have also been cooperative understandings with regard to upskilling of employees, arrangements between the US Small Business Administration and the Indian Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, announcements of substantial investments by companies like Boeing, 100 million in this case, on infrastructure and programs to train pilots in India, etc. So a fairly important set of announcements. Space, that has been another area which has seen important outcomes being announced today. The one in particular needs mention is the signing by India. Ambassador Sandhu signed it yesterday, is Artemis Accords. India has become signatory to the Artemis Accords, which would essentially open up a new area of partnership between Indian Space Research Organization and NASA and other relevant entities for cooperation in the field of outer space, in particular relating to exploration initiatives on Moon and other outer space objects. The other important segment which I should highlight is India's decision and the US welcome of that decision for us to join the Mineral Security Partnership, which essentially opens up opportunities for India and the US to cooperate in this entire field of critical minerals, which is so important for strategic new industries coming up in the field of electric mobility, energy transition, in particular green transition, etc. So if you were to, if I was to kind of wrap it up in some sense, you will find, you know, expressions of these key elements of day 2 of Prime Minister's visit and also his engagements yesterday reflected in multiple statements by Prime Minister today, including in particular his congressional address. So Prime Minister spoke of in this visit, one, a new chapter of relations. He spoke of new direction and energy. 3, he emphasized on the strong and futuristic partnership. 4, resilient supply chains was an important aspect which he mentioned in his statements. Mutual trust and shared strategic priorities. Friendship between the two leaders, the Leadership Connect, which has been one of the principal drivers of such a rapid and large set of achievements that we have managed to register in the relationship. And again, a Leadership Connect, a friendship, which is not just for the benefit of 2 of our countries, but is also something which is very, very relevant for the entire humankind and the global peace. The strong strategic partnership, the strong Leadership Connect, President Biden himself mentioned that both India and US have democracy in their DNA, is a proof essentially of the power of democracy, of the value-based relationship, but a value-based relationship which also delivers for the respective countries as also for the relationship. And you find expressions of these sentiments in these substantive outcomes which I have listed. So a visit which has been extremely rich on form, but equally, if not more rich on substance. I listed out some of it for you. Discussions, achievements, outcomes, focused not just on the individual items, but also focused on how those outcomes need to be achieved in a value-based framework. Working in this value-based framework on different aspects, the 2 leaders sketched their vision of the relationship, which, as I said, is pathway for a future cooperation and the convergence of strategic interest. The 2 also, working in this value system and vision, spoke of the need to listen to the voices, other voices which are there in the world for their own benefit. Spoke about the vigor in the relationship, and I mentioned these examples clearly pointed out, and the new ventures, the ventures which cut across space of technology, trade, energy, space, critical minerals, etc. And the last, to top it all, that all this in an absolutely trustworthy, reliable way, in a manner that works for the relationship, but also works for the regions and working for the global good. All in all, a truly path-breaking, ongoing visit of the Honorable Prime Minister, and we hope that the set of engagements that are anticipated for tomorrow will add on additional value, more substance, show us maybe newer domains in which the two countries and the two systems can partner more strongly to even forge a deeper, more extensive and a stronger partnership between the two countries. Just one last word on the Honorable Prime Minister's congressional address. You all must have watched. We saw many of you, if not all of you, in the U.S. Congress. You clearly saw the everything that Honorable Prime Minister said. The extent to which, how deeply it resonated with the congressmen and the senators present in the Congress, how the address brought out Honorable Prime Minister's vision of India that is transforming under his leadership in the last 9 years, how he sees important developments in important regions of the world, and his perspective on some of the global challenges such as climate change, challenge of terrorism that we all face, etc. I think what we saw today at the Congress today is unlike anything that we may have seen in some time. But all in all, a truly special visit, exceptional visit, and which we hope, which we are confident that would build on to this relationship and take it to higher reaches further. I would stop here, and if there are questions, I'll be try and take them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Before we take the questions, ground rules, please introduce yourself and the organization that you represent. Ayush, can I start with you?
Good evening, Ayush Agarwal from ANI. So I have two questions. My first is, since we know that cross-border terrorism and Pakistan was part of the conversation between the two leaders, was there any sort of discussion or request made by India regarding the extradition of Tagore Rana, the Pakistani terrorist? Second question is, during the bilateral meetings between the two leaders, was there any discussion on having a free trade agreement between the two countries? Any prospects for an FTA?
Can you just repeat the second part of your question? Was there agreement on a free trade agreement? What did you say?
Any prospects for an FTA?
Prospects, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Siddhant, can we go ahead with you?
Hi sir, Siddhant from Beyond. How much there was a conversation on China and aggressive Chinese actions in the Indo-Pacific and across the world as well, if you can talk about that, sir?
Yeah, just 1 second. Okay, China and discussions on that. Yeah, Manish?
Manish Chand, India Rights Network. Sir, President Biden in his ceremonial welcome spoke quite a bit about Indo-Pacific, Quad, and later in the Congress speech, Prime Minister spoke about the dark clouds of coercion and connectivity and all that. Clearly these were obliquely targeted at China. How much of China wasn't discussed between the two leaders? And any concrete plans for intensifying cooperation in the Indo-Pacific? Thank you.
Why don't I come back another round of questions? So, we take 3 questions.